Hello, my friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family. Hope you guys are doing well today. So, we see here in the Watchers a deep 6.9 earthquake, and this hit Japan. Now, this is deep too. This is at 458 kilometers. The USGS right now is showing it downgraded to a 6.6 over here. So, this definitely has the potential to create a bigger one, and typically the energy is either going to go up towards Kamchatka and over towards Alaska, or it could go down into the Philippines heading towards Indonesia. We will have to wait and see. At this depth, you could expect it to potentially create something in a magnitude of 7 or slightly greater. And there's been an awful lot of swarming that we've talked about all over the west coast of the U.S., and we've had some curious earthquakes in different areas. Yesterday, actually, there were some up in Iceland here that they're not showing right now. We could change that and see if we go 7 days, all magnitudes. And here you see a couple over on Greenland. That was curious, 4.3 and 4.5. And then you see some over here off pretty much right in the middle between UK and Canada. So we have a lot of activity going on, and more than just even the quakes. If you guys checked out the first channel's video today, it was basically a call for some prayer and positive intention for the planet, because we are co-creators on this planet, as everybody on the second channel I know understands EEARTS. And our intentions do matter. We see that there are still some swarming going on in Idaho. Right now we only have one quake showing over in the Salt Lake City area. And since these are on the base over here, these could be related to bombing runs. There was swarming, as we talked about before, off around Goldfield, Carson City, west of Tonopah as well. And then we were looking at this swarm, and there's still 17 quakes there, although it's quieted down some. And we still have activity. We've always had activity in Ridgecrest now. 52 showing right now, ever since the big one hit there. So still watching, and still particularly watching in the Cascadia area as well. So this quake in Japan, it's 6.9, downgraded to 6.6. Again, we'll watch this. There was no tsunami risk because it was so deep as well. And over here we see another severe weather outbreak is expected across the southern U.S. We're into the spring. We're getting into tornado season. And we already had so many tornadoes hit the entire south. So here you see this is going to be looking towards Sunday. An outbreak of severe thunderstorms will be possible across much of the deep south and southeast on Sunday. Damaging winds, large hail, and tornadoes will be the main threats. Heavy rainfall can also cause flash flooding, with some of the flooding locally significant. Greatest threat appears to be from Louisiana, Georgia. Meanwhile, near average or colder than average temperatures are forecast for much of the country today, although the northwest and southern Florida should be above normal. And we see Arctic zone depletion hits record low in March. So an analysis of satellite observations show that ozone levels over the Arctic hit a record low for the month of March. And the depletion was caused by an unusually weak upper atmospheric wave event from December 2019 to March this year. Interesting changes we're seeing in the planet all over, and with the cities being on lockdown in so many cases, the wildlife is really doing well and bouncing back. The earth will rebound from everything that it's gone through. It's just a matter of time, and it all depends on how much of us could wake up and demand positive change from the system that has been just so disharmonious with the earth and all life upon it. Cuba breaks all-time temperature record at 102.7 is the hottest temp they've had there. And so we got some heat going down there, and the summer outlook is actually pretty warm. Most of the country is going to be above average or around average. The only place you have slightly below average is the uppermost part over here of North Dakota and going in towards Wisconsin. Otherwise, everybody's going to be, heading right into summer, and that was the outlook for May. And this is the outlook for June. Again, much above average over on the eastern part of Washington, Oregon, and Idaho, and the western part of Wyoming and Montana as well. So otherwise, pretty much above average in the Northeast and the rest of the West, and about average the rest of the country. So we shall see how things manifest here as we look towards July, keeping with much above average in Pacific Northwest overall, and everybody else pretty much at average or above, besides a small area from San Diego to southwestern Arizona. And here we see large contribution from anthropogenic warming to an emerging North American megadrought. So, this is out of science, and, again, this is going to be mainstream, and we know mainstream has sold us on carbon emissions and global warming, and that there's not much to do with anything else. It's all humanity's fault, and humanity is at fault for so much poisoning and polluting of the planet. But there's a lot more going on than just that. And so they're talking about global warming pushing us into what could be a mega drought on the North American continent, especially over towards the western side and southwest in particular. Yet what we have seen really has been quite a bit of rain in comparison to typical, would not you say, Cindy? And lots of green. And you have been here you've been in the Southwest for like 25 years, Yeah. So is it greener than what you have seen in the past, would you say, overall?
I would say overall, like in the last 3 years, it's been just a little greener, a little greener, a little greener. So it's a slow onset, but it's definitely an onset.
Yeah. So it's interesting what we see, because we've seen contradictory things. And as we know, there's the global warming proponents, and then there's the grand solar minimum proponents, that are focusing on record snowpack and wherever the cold records are. What we do have is extremes that we could see, and we definitely have what has emerged as a very violent climate in some ways, with the storms just being so much more intense. Like every hurricane always seems to just jump straight from Category 1. Before you know it, 24 hours later, it's a Category 5.
Yeah, it does. I mean, things are definitely changing. It's still a little bit like the frog in boiling water, and I think one of these days, though, it's going to be more than obvious.
Yeah, I think we're there for most people now. Yeah, but then, of course, it depends on what's first and foremost on people's minds. And so right now, most people are going stir crazy with the situation. Here we see coastal flooding is going to get a lot worse for California and other areas too. This is showing. And we've talked about this along the Gulf and also going all the way up along the East Coast, especially in the Chesapeake Bay area and the mid-Atlantic area. There's going to be some severe problems with that. And we have seen, and I did visit like over about a year ago, coastal South Carolina, and was down in the Charleston area talking to some people and people that lived there their whole life, and they said they haven't seen so much flooding from like king tides and non-storm related events. And of course the storm related events have been another thing entirely. So that's what they're saying. They found that especially Southern California is going to be very vulnerable to flooding in the upcoming years. I think everybody has to be very aware and maybe not weary, but just, take things to another level in your preps, as we have always been saying. And those that have are happy they did now, because we don't know what exactly could end up locking us in our houses for prolonged periods of time. And it could be that we won't have the grid for prolonged periods of time. And I'm getting strong signals that that's going to start to occur probably before the end of this calendar year. would expect that. And so here we see just something to be aware of. Beware of roadblocks after the bleep hits the fan. And crime in some areas has gone and skyrocketed, and there are a lot of criminal activities that are not being responded to, and some will take advantage, of situations. And you and I, we hit somebody just that was blocking the middle of the road in a weird way. And as we approached, then they moved to the side. But it was just weird how they were parking at an angle and blocking. And immediately we were kind of like a little apprehensive.
Yeah, the whole road. They took up the whole road. It would have been difficult to go around one way or the other. So it looked very deliberate.
Yeah, suspicious, because you wonder what people will do in these times, and especially as we get deeper into these times. So, roadblocks, they are dangerous. This is how people control territory in emergency situation. From legitimate authorities and sometimes illegitimate people trying to rob you. Roadblocks are established in limited visibility. You might come upon them quickly. Keep a very heightened sense of awareness around curves and hills, and be aware of what's going on to the sides of you and potentially somebody else coming back around the back of you. Competent roadblocks will have multiple people stationed, so assume there may be backup. Primary and secondary roads will be the first to establish roadblocks. Try to use back roads as much as possible, logging trails, things like that. Areas of heavy tree cover, rocks, and terrain make good roadblock stations. They are looking to surprise you. Travel on flat roads. Have multiple vehicles, if possible. From a tactical standpoint, one car is a high risk. If you're walking, stick to two groups and slightly separate. Avoid cities and towns. Go the long way to avoid cities by 5+ miles. Have primary, alternate, and emergency routes established. Have a plan. Know the plan and rally in spots in case of separation. First car in the group should travel ahead to notify everyone else of roadblocks. Second car can be signaled. Expect overwatch. Overwatch stations will pay attention to cars traveling together. First car should arrive slowly if possible. Relay information back to the second car. Second car covers the first. Second car should provide cover and be ready in case the first car needs backup. And when the first car is passed, they provide cover for following cars. So, this is getting into shooter and sniper situations. Let's hope it doesn't deteriorate that far. But, you just never know, and I had a family member ask me today, just because of everything that's going on, just saying, I hope you and Cindy have thought about personal self-defense, and that's something we don't really cover on this channel because we want to focus more on light and love, but then there's the practicality of things as well. So everybody should know how to defend themselves, both, armed and unarmed, as best as possible. And so it gets into some other things, including wearing body armor or people ramming. You got to realize that hopefully this situation that the world's in right now will lift and things will slowly go back to normal, or, as fast as possible go back to normal. A lot of people feel like there'll never be a normal. There'll just be a new normal, which will be something that is, not like what we've been used to in the past. And then, of course, there's talk of waves of different, these things reemerging. And so, things can deteriorate even further, especially when people are weary and tired and hungry and desperation builds in. So, we must be prepared for ourselves, for our loved ones, family members. And this is such a good time for us to really, get together and work out things with our family members and your neighbors and your friends on what if scenarios. Really think about the what if scenarios. And obviously people that were prepared for what we are now facing are doing much, much better overall than people that were totally unprepared and it caught them by surprise, and they didn't have food, they didn't have water stockpiled, they didn't have medicines or whatever, vitamins and things, supplements that they take. And the next thing might be the grid. And so we have to think about that as well, depending on your area. Are you in a very cold area, or are you going to be in a place where it's going to be 120 degrees in the day, and it's going to be tough to survive? How about water? Now, what happens if the power's out? Will you still have water? What if the public officials shut down the water and the power? Then what are you going to do? Think along those lines. Everybody, I want to thank you for your support on Patreon, also on Ko-Fi. And as always, much love and gratitude to you guys for being part of this family. Anyone's interested, reach out to us for any of the services, including the Vedic readings that Cindy's doing like crazy. She's had such amazing feedback from people. Energy work, biofield tuning, and any way we could help, just let us know. We operate on a donation basis, so we want to be able to help anybody that needs help. As always, my friends, much love, God bless, and namaste.
God bless and namaste.